Welcome to the Empathic Engineering Podcast, where continuous improvement meets human leadership. I'm your host, Emily Honor Hubbard, and whether you're leading a plant floor, navigating a team through change, or just trying to build a culture where people actually want to show up, you are in the right place. Each episode, we dig into real conversations happening in manufacturing, challenges, breakthroughs, and the human side of getting better every single day. Let's get into it. All right, today I'm here with Nick LaBonte. Nick, you're a computer engineer and engineering leader with over 20 years experience in firmware, embedded systems, and product development. You've also worked everywhere from the factory floor up to advising in the C-suite with a philosophy rooted in empathy and behavior-based leadership. All that while being a voice growing in this space. I know because we met on LinkedIn, Nick has an incredible ability to talk about some of the real challenges that happen in engineering. And for any of you listening, this is the first episode of the Empathic Engineering Podcast. I knew that Nick would be the right guest to interview because he is so open about some of these difficult conversations. So thank you for being here, Nick.
Thanks for all those nice words.
Yes, yeah, of course. So I am really interested in hearing what is it that got you into engineering leadership after working for so many years on the technical side?
Yeah, so leadership always felt like both something that I wanted to strive for and something that other people did. Mm-hmm. And early on in my career, I had a mixed bag of leaders. I had some, leaders who were very good, who would give feedback, who were open and listened well, and I had some who were more of the classic engineer promoted into leadership model. Mm-hmm. And at some point, I thought, I could do this. I could be that manager that I really could have used at several points in my career. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoy getting the opportunity to bring the most out of people, right?
Yeah.
It's incredibly fulfilling for me to help somebody else meet their goals.
Right. And so you mentioned at one point, leadership seemed like something that other people do, not necessarily you. When did that shift occur where you thought, this is something for me?
I had one boss fairly early in my career who really showed me what servant leadership could be. And I feel like I grew up with more of the classic model of the manager who's, their job is to tell you exactly what to do all the time. And that was certainly my experience as I worked in retail or other places like that when I was younger. And Tom showed me that you could lead in a way that fit with your values, that fit with the goals of lifting other people up as opposed to bringing them down. And he did it in a way that it seemed, I wouldn't say easy, but it seemed natural. And it didn't seem like a stretch, and it didn't seem like performance or anything like that. And along the way, I also had a lot of good feedback about my ability to work with lots of different kinds of people, my ability to hear and listen and understand scenarios and help work with people to get through them.
Tell me, did Tom encourage you at any point to pursue leadership?
Yes, absolutely. Tom saw that I had that potential and put me in positions where even if I wasn't able to be direct frontline manager, I could still exercise those skills. So pairing me up with junior engineers to teach and mentor them, or giving me the opportunity to run projects, continuous improvement projects for the company, the opportunity to present to leadership or get involved in hiring processes with these kinds of things.
Okay.
And so, yeah, he was very encouraging me in any way that he could.
All right. Yeah, and earlier you described getting into management like jumping on a rocket ship and just holding on to it.
Yeah.
So I want to hear, what was it that made it challenging?
For me, the most challenging parts have been about forgetting some of the things that I learned as an engineer. Your best leaders typically aren't the ones coming up with all the ideas. They're not the ones solving all the problems. And learning to use those skills to ask better questions, or to put other people in positions to learn those things that I already learned, as opposed to trying to directly do it myself. That was something I definitely had to learn my way into. But by far, the hardest part for me was learning when and how to have the hard conversations with people, to solve friction within teams, right? To have, to put people in a position to be as successful as they could be. And a lot of times the things that were getting in their way were not their engineering abilities, it was their communication, empathy. So often I found that the thing that's getting in a person's way is their behaviors, and it's not their abilities.
Right.
And those are topics that people are hesitant to get into. They often avoid talking.
Yeah, naturally, right? It's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable. You don't want to hurt people.
The managers don't want to hurt people by bringing it up.
Right.
And us as humans, we don't always want to open a wound that is painful.
And you never know what's causing that behavior.
Right.
And I'm not a psychologist.
Right.
I'm not a psychiatrist. I have no intention of being one.
Exactly.
But what I've learned is it's a skill that you can learn. You can practice it and get better at it. And if you do the hard work of building trust, you can have uncomfortable conversations with people and walk out of the room with them thanking you for it. And that feels like magic.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah. And you were able to do that, I imagine.
Poorly at first.
Right.
Poorly at first, absolutely. It's not only uncomfortable, but it can be challenging to identify exactly what the cause is. What we're talking about is not an obvious black and white issue. It's about how somebody carries themselves. It's about how they respond to difficult situations. And you want to give people the space to be themselves, right? And you want to be accepting of who they are and how they act and where they come from. But we're all here to do a job, and we spend too much time together to be causing problems for one another. And those are real problems that cost companies time and money.
Yeah.
If you're my coworker and I'm afraid to come to you to give you some feedback about the work that you did because Emily has a short fuse, well, I might not give you that feedback, and we might not uncover that problem with the product that we're working on.
Right.
Our customer might do it, and you know how expensive that is for your customer to find you issues. And it comes about in subtle ways. So learning how to do that has definitely been the hardest part in my leadership.
Yeah. Wonderful. And I love that you brought up this idea of black and white thinking, because I think that engineers are in part attracted to the field because we are logic-based.
There's an answer.
Naturally, exactly.
Yep.
And it's clear, and you're right or you're wrong. So considering that idea of rewarding our logic-based behavior in engineering, how have you seen a bridge into empathy in your career?
Empathy is really where I ground my technique. It's really the basis of my technique. It's the basis of my leadership style and abilities. And empathy doesn't have to be this, scary concept. For me, it's about understanding the person that you're working with as a person, understanding what are the things that are challenges for them, what are the things that motivate them, what are the things that get them excited, what are the things that are stressors for them or that tire them, and then not using that to avoid those topics, but using it to be thoughtful about how you're working with that person, how you're giving them feedback, how you're assigning work to them.
Right. And I want to know, was there a specific experience, you mentioned a training that you took a while back that helped you shift perspective?
Absolutely. So when I was at Milwaukee Tool in roughly 2018, 2019, it was my first time being official manager. They really saw the value in strong, consistent leadership and how it truly made the organization unique. And so I went out on a limb and signed up for a training on emotional intelligence.
An optional training.
An optional training.
Yeah.
I was not assigned this one. And that truly did feel like going out on a limb. I would say, historically in my life, thinking about emotions has not been a strength. Self-regulation has not been a strength. And when I took that training, it was one of the most empowering things that I've gone through. I came into that not having heard or understood what the term emotional intelligence was.
Okay.
And it's a little crazy to me that I had to learn about it at work, but
That's great.
It's great that they offered that. And the key for me was learning that emotional intelligence wasn't a static thing that you're assigned at birth, but it was a skill that you could practice. It's based in science, and it's a skill that you can develop, just like all those other skills that I had developed in my engineering career. I was never afraid to be thrown at a technical challenge, but I was incredibly afraid of being thrown at people challenges.
Of course.
And so I took that training, and it was presented in the work environment, and it was about techniques that you can use at work to help identify and regulate your emotions in order to think more clearly and be a better coworker for the people that you're working with.
What's one of the best skills that you took away from that?
The most basic one was literally waiting 6 seconds before reacting when something upsets you.
Why would you do that? I feel something right away. Why would I wait?
To act on it.
Yeah.
I think of it as this, I get this feeling in my chest. It tells me something's not right. But that feeling lies to me. It tries to make me get angry at other people and blame them.
Yeah.
It tries to absolve me of responsibility and protect my pride. And learning to recognize that and realize that if I can just see that that's happening and wait, and it's literally 6 seconds. Now, 6 seconds in an uncomfortable conversation can feel like a long time.
And what's a time that you've been able to use that skill?
Well, that first training, the very first day, I took the training at work, and I went home and I used that technique of waiting 6 seconds to handle a stressful situation in my personal life that very same day.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Yeah.
And it felt like I had just unlocked of the universe. And I went back to work first thing in the morning the next day and went to the office of the person who ran the training. Hi, Mark Brewer, appreciate you. And told him what happened and let him know how much of an impact that training had on me. Not just in my work, but in my personal life.
Cool. That's beautiful. And have you had any training like that since? I think you mentioned it was half a day, full day, maybe?
Yeah, no, I feel like since then it's been more of a personal growth mission for me. And I try to share, what I've learned without being too pushy for other people. I know it can be an uncomfortable situation or an uncomfortable topic especially for engineers.
Yeah.
It's incredibly powerful, and it's been something that I've really, since literally that day, have just been leaning into to grow my leadership abilities.
Okay, wonderful. So if I'm an engineering leader and I'm walking into a high stress environment this week, what's something you think that I could implement immediately?
I've got 2 ideas for you.
Yeah.
First one is prepare. Recognize what those stressors are. Prepare for how they might come up. And think about what you're going to do when it happens.
What are some of the stressors? Like, I'm thinking of people.
It's usually people, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, so the things that stress me are people with opinions.
Okay, we're on the same page.
There's the best engineers are often cursed with the ability to be right almost all the time. And
that's hilarious.
there was somebody that I worked with who had a mini poster on his desk laminated. And he listed the most important things. And I forget what the first 3 were. It was like the customer's experience, the health of the company, and then ... Not important, being correct. I thought that was a great lesson. And how that relates to what you're asking about is people can be correct, and that can cause stress. And maybe that's because the implications of what that person is saying is going to cause some trouble. Maybe it's trouble for you because you didn't make a good decision leading up to it. Maybe it's going to cause you to have to think about, how are we going to solve this problem for this customer today when it's an immediate issue. Maybe it's just your pride that got hurt because somebody recognized something that you didn't do to the best of your abilities. That's where I find, at least for me personally, when I'm feeling that thing, it's usually because of somebody else having a point of view that conflicts with my own at that moment. And I have to reconcile that. So prepare for that. Understand what's going to stress you and think about how you're going to handle it. Have a couple tools in your toolbox. Wait 6 seconds.
Yeah.
Say, let's come back to this later. And then the second thing, it's related, but it's a little bit more structured. I have a way of approaching these situations. Let's say I've got to give you some really difficult feedback. For me, that usually starts with a feeling, right? I mentioned this before. That feeling is a signal that you need to do something. What to do?
Let's walk through a time when I felt a signal from my body. So I was walking onto the manufacturing floor with my manager who wasn't particularly happy with the amount of people that I reached out to about solving a problem. Overstepping, if you will.
Sure.
And I remember insisting that we needed the opinion of a design engineer to make a change in the process. Where she disagreed, I started following her out to the floor so that we could, in theory, solve a problem together. But I could feel my heart beating in my hands because of the stress.
That's a sign.
So there I am feeling it, Nick. What would be the ideal scenario after that?
Yeah, so there's a framework that I use that I call feel it, see it, name it, and ground it. It starts with that feeling, right? And learn to recognize that feeling is a great first step. You don't have to explore it. You don't have to understand where it's coming from 100% of the time. Just see it. Just feel it. Then you got to look, and you got to see what is it that is actually causing this situation to happen that's making me uncomfortable. Often really hard to put your finger on it. It's somebody's subtle behaviors. It's the way that they react when they're challenged, or maybe it's somebody who's a little cranky sometimes in the mornings and they don't want to be approached. Those kinds of things can be hard to put your finger on. And so that feeling to me is a sign to watch very carefully. That's the see it part. Once you've seen it, you got to name it. Because at some point you got to communicate this to somebody. So naming it is often the most difficult part. That's where you have to put into words what it is that you're trying to get across to that person. That's the uncomfortable moment. And then ground it. So ground it in examples that you can use to help show that person that you're talking to the scenarios and help them understand how that they can behave differently in a future situation.
Okay, so going back to this example when I felt my heartbeat in my hands, maybe with enough patience I can see that there's tension because my manager had a plan in place and I was circumventing the plan.
And this goes back to empathy, right? You have to understand what's in that manager's, what's causing that manager to have this reaction. What's causing her to resist your genuinely positive efforts to solve a problem? What's causing that to be interpreted differently than you would intend, right?
Yeah.
Well, you could get defensive about that, of course, but that's never really helped anybody. So yeah, you felt that. You felt the pulse in your hands, and then you got to see what is it that's driving that with your manager.
Right. And then if I get into naming it, how might you suggest? I think there's a lot of ways. Even the 6-second pause probably would have been helpful in that case, but do you have thoughts about waiting a certain amount of time to name a difficult feeling?
Yeah, well, it depends. And for me, you've got to be able to communicate it and articulate it clearly, but you also have to realize at some point you're just avoiding it, and you got to go do that hard part. And recognize that you're never going to get it perfect, and the first time you do it, you're probably going to be bad at it. And the second time you do it, you're probably going to be bad at it. And the 10th time you do it, you might be okay at it. And the 50th time you do it, man, it still doesn't feel great, but I know it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And then the 100th time you do it, all right, this is how I lead, this is how I succeed, right?
Yeah.
And curious, how was your relationship with that manager in that situation? Do you feel like you had a strong, trust-based relationship, or was there something else going on?
Oh gosh, well I feel like that's what even led to the misunderstanding, the argument that we had, because when I'm able to take a step back and recognize that I wouldn't interact with most coworkers in that way, it's a very clear sign that something should probably change. And it did take me a long time to realize that. Unfortunately, I felt so stressed out that I ended up leaving the company. But if I were able to complete this entire process then of grounding maybe I wasn't meant to be at that company. That's totally fine. But I would have had a much easier time transitioning out of the company if I felt that I had completed this cycle of learning what.
And we're here talking about leadership.
Yeah.
It's a difficult thing to lead your boss in that way, right? That's what you're being asked to do in that situation is you're taking the lead to get your arms wrapped around a situation that you see and you know needs to get fixed, and you're taking responsibility for making sure that that happens. That's leadership, whether you're the boss or not, right? That's where I feel like that technique that I'm describing works in so many scenarios, right? It's not just about leading, it's not just about managing. Leadership is a thing that you do, right? It's not a position that you have.
Yeah, so tell me, Nick, what is it that you care most about right now in terms of the content you're sharing on LinkedIn, messages that you want people to consider?
My engineer brain can't help but see all the problems all around us all the time. Inability for leaders to recognize behaviors that are hurting their teams and have difficult conversations around it is hurting a lot of teams, a lot of people, and it's costing us a lot of time and money. And I am an engineer and I work for a company that makes products. I want us to be successful. I want us to have the best products. I want us to have them out there quickly. I want our company to be successful. I want our people to be successful. And I continue to see these types of leadership failures getting in the way of that. I'm not specifically talking about my company. I'm talking about everywhere. And I feel like I've got a perspective and some experience to share. And it's cliche, but if I can help one person advance in their career or get more fulfillment out of their career, that's a huge win for me. That brings me all the joy.
Yeah. And it means so much that you've been there. You've been on both sides.
I try not to forget that.
That's a wrap on today's episode of the Empathic Engineering Podcast. If something we talked about today resonated with you, I'd love for you to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you have a minute, leaving a review goes a long way in helping other manufacturing leaders find this show. Until next time, keep leading with empathy, keep pushing for better, and remember, the best improvements start with people.